Awesome. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for the live release of a bunch of stuff, actually. We've got a ton to go over today. We've got some really great people from our team to actually go through and help you all understand like how monumental this actually is for us. I just said it a couple minutes ago. Couple ground rules. Please use the Q&A. If you have questions, feel free to upvote those. This is being recorded. So if you want to come back and watch this later, it's going to be on our YouTube channel, and we might even have some follow-up webinars just because there is so much information being packed in here. I believe our team will also be sending some helpful information via the chat. So if you have questions, take a look at the help articles that we're sending, because a lot of those might be useful to you. But awesome. Without further ado, let's, I guess, get this party started. My name is Becca. I'll be, sorry, I'm getting a call. I will be sort of hosting this live event. I've been with PriceLabs for about 2 years now, but I'm definitely not the most interesting person on the call today. Maybe Richie, Anurag, do you want to maybe go through and introduce yourselves?
Sure. I can start. Yeah. My name's Richie. I'm one of the co-founders at PriceLabs, and Becca's lying. She is easily one of the most interesting and most useful person for everyone, for every one of our customers. Becca leads our solutions team in at PriceLabs, and so she knows more about PriceLabs than most of others on the call today. But I'll pass it on to maybe Anurag and then Pedro and others to introduce.
Of course. Hey everyone, this is Anurag, one of the co-founders at PriceLabs. I'll echo what Richie said. Becca is lying. Yes. I handle data science and product, which basically means figuring out how to improve our algorithms, how to make sure they're top notch, and everything else that goes with it.
Cool. Yes, my name is Pedro. I'm in the data science team, and yeah, I work on making sure we have the right data and also making sure that the data is used in good ways, right, to come up with price recommendations. But that's about it. Yeah.
Arpit, you want to say hi? No. We've got Arpit and who else is here answering questions? We've got a couple of members answering questions as they're coming in. But again, we've got a lot to cover today. So I think our founders are going to start us off with a little bit of a note just to talk about how great this release is and how much work has really gone into it. It's really just been incredible to watch from my end and everything. So Anurag or Richie, you want to start us off?
Yes, I think there is a little bit of an issue though before I get started. I and I think someone on the Matthew did highlight this that we have like a setting which requires people to sign in to Zoom. So firstly, apologies for that. We'll make sure that that setting doesn't exist in future where it requires you to sign into Zoom to be able to join this webinar. So apologies for that. But yeah, we have a lot of people on this call, and so let me get started on this, right? Very excited and like indebted to everyone in the ecosystem. This release that we're going to go through today, and you've probably seen this already, marks a big step change for us in and what you'd expect from PriceLabs. The major crux of this release and the major focus on this webinar that we'd focus on is the new pricing algorithm, HLP. This is something that is not very transparent, so it's not like a customization that you can quickly see, right? But this is something that we've been spending nearly or we have spent nearly past 2 years on, and we've gone a significant overhaul also as a company in the past 2 years. We've moved from 30 people to nearly 150 people, and a lot of market shifts. All of you are very familiar with how the market has changed. Now, as we went through designing for this algorithm, there were a lot of changes that we did in our data processing, in how we look at comp sets and how we work on our algorithms, right? Everything that we did made us made us work faster and will make us work faster to innovate and improve products for you, right? As an offshoot of the project of HLP was, for example, booking curves that you may have used, which is a part of portfolio analytics, right? While I am spending time on HLP, I also want to say that there are 20 plus new features that have come up as a part of this release, and many of those that we'd be diving in today. Most of these tools, our intention is to provide you with intelligence, right? Provide you with workflows that help you automate things that you're doing, and also provide you with analytical tools so that you can understand your market and intervene quickly. Today, we have about 150 people who are dedicatedly working on making products and services for you. And as we go through this year and next year, we also have on the platform that we're building on HLP and some of the other stuff, we'd be having more incredible releases coming through. But having said that, all of this is not possible without the feedback and everything that you guys bring to us. So I'm extremely thankful for everyone who's joined in today. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the love. And with that, I would like Anurag and Pedro to get started with HLP.
All right. Sounds good. So Richie covered this briefly. Hyperlocal pulse is sort of the big thing that we have been working on for the last 2 years almost. Becca, if you can move to the next slide. Before we go into hyperlocal pulse, I want to spend a little bit time on like, okay, why did it have to be now? Why did we even have to do this major shift? So PriceLabs started in 2014, and a lot, like we built a machine learning algorithm back then, rolled out in Chicago. A few months later, we rolled out sort of a more global model to say, okay, anybody anywhere around the world should be able to use PriceLabs. We got a lot of feedback to say, hey, look, just having an algorithm isn't enough. We need to be able to customize this algorithm because everybody has different needs. So it took us a while. It took us 2 years to then say, okay, like let's come up with an algorithm where it's a little bit clearer. It's not a black box. And say, what's the next version where customers can truly, and larger property managers can truly say, okay, this serves my revenue management needs, not just dynamic pricing. It's not turn on and not be able to interact with it. After that, it has been an incredible journey of saying, okay, constant user feedback, like Richie said, right? To say, okay, what works well, what doesn't work well, where can we improve? A lot of times we added customizations to say, okay, we'll add this customization so that property managers who have a specific property type or in a specific market can be served better. Or we added more to the algorithm to say, okay, how can we improve our event detection? How can we improve our holiday detection? Post-COVID, when history was not a good indicator of future anymore, we said, okay, how can we introduce pacing to our algorithm in a much better way so that the algorithm changes over time, right? The price recommendations change over time. But like every technology, almost like 9 years now is a long time. A lot of shifts happen. Technology moves at such a pace that we got to a place where we said, hey, we collect so much more data now that we should be able to build if we were to build an algorithm today, we would do a lot better than what we already have. So like, how can we get there? That's where the initiative for Hyperlocal Pulse started about 2 years back. And then it has been a long, 2 years is a long time for any industry, but it has been a lot of testing, a lot of feedback from a lot of our early beta customers, all of which has helped us get in here. One of the key things that we observe as a result is just improved RevPAR. And then we'll talk about that in the upcoming slides as well. I wanted to encapsulate exactly what is different from our previous algorithm to our new algorithm. Our previous algorithm was very good. That's the reason everybody on this call is probably using PriceLabs, right? And it identified very clearly what things need to be done at a hyperlocal level and what things are okay doing at a broader level. So for example, holidays, events, day of week, we identified very early in our journey that these things are very neighborhood dependent. If you are in the downtown of a city, you get business demand. Your weekend versus weekday premiums may not to be as high. Whereas if you are on in more touristy part of the city, weekends is your bread and butter. You don't get that business demand. So that's the reason we said, okay, no matter what, we want to make sure from very early on that these top three are captured at a very hyperlocal level. Seasonality and pacing, we said, okay, broadly at a region level, these do a good enough job. And these are very computationally heavy models. Like seasonality and pacing are, if you ask any data scientist, it takes a ton to get those right. And so we did those at a cluster level. But like I said, computational power, data availability, a lot of things were so much better in the last 2 years. We have invested a lot in our data infrastructure that we said, hey, we should be able to do all of this at a hyperlocal level. And then that's the shift. Everything now is being done for wherever your property is, the closest properties around you that are similar in size. So if you're a 3-bedroom versus a 6-bedroom, your seasonality might be different. Larger homes tend to be more seasonal than smaller homes. Smaller homes tend to also see business demand during low season, whereas larger homes tend to be mostly for vacation, right? A lot of these nuances come up that the new algorithm is just able to capture a lot better. The end result of all of this is essentially, actually, before we go to the end result, I talked about this already, but in this example that just came up, Becca, if you go to the map, I talked about this in depth already, but again, this is showing that example, like where you are in the city, that's on the, if you look at the map on the top right, there is that orangish area, the hexagons, which show, okay, that's the downtown area, versus the blue area at the bottom right is more of a beach area, and how the seasonality can be very different. Now, the old way, we would create 2 clusters for these 2 locations to say the beach area gets one kind of seasonality, the city gets one kind of seasonality. But you will see that there are a lot of short-term rentals all the way in the middle. We have to make a decision, or we had to make a decision. Do they fall in the beach one? Do they go into the city one, the old town one? And what we have done now is to say, okay, it doesn't have to be either or, it can be a continuum. If you are somewhere in the middle and your market behaves like it is somewhere in the middle, then your seasonality is going to be like it's somewhere in the middle, right? And that's the main crux of what we have improved. So you can get to the next slide, Becca. Cool, yeah, and the end result is essentially improved seasonality, improved day-of-week fluctuations, holiday and event pricing. On every single front, there has been an improvement. And the final outcome is if you were doing more of set and forget kind of pricing, then it will be just improved RevPAR, improved revenue for you, right? And if you were doing, if you were a very savvy customer who was like very heavily involved, you were customizing our algorithm a lot, what this means is that you'll have to do fewer manual interventions. So like, which saves everybody time, right? So we think of any time we build something, like we want to say, is it going to improve our customers' revenues? And is it going to save customers time? And for different customers, the answer can be different. And again, it can be somewhere in the middle, but that's what we are seeing with the new algorithm. The last thing I want to address before I hand it over to Pedro is, because now everything is being done at a hyperlocal level, there is significantly more transparency in our product. I'm hoping everybody who uses PriceLabs has been to the neighborhood data tab, because it is one of the coolest parts of the entire product, I feel. You get so much insight into how is your market doing, how is it doing compared to last year, is it slower, is it faster? Like a lot of things when you have one property, or if you have 100 properties, things that you observe in your portfolio, you can project and say, like, is this because I'm doing something wrong, or is this because the market is doing worse, or is it doing because I'm doing better, or is it because the market is doing better? But all of this data that you see here is exactly what is powering your dynamic pricing now. So earlier where we had cluster level information that you couldn't see in the product, now everything that powers your dynamic pricing with HLP is going to be present here. So you can anytime go and say, okay, my prices are showing up higher for some weekend in March. Let me see what's happening in my neighborhood. Is something going on? Is it pacing higher than last year? What happened last year on this weekend, and things like that. With that in mind, and this is a good place to hand it over to Pedro, because he's going to get a lot more into what data you see here and how that powers our new algorithm.
All right, sounds good. I guess, yeah, like Anurag was saying, like talking about transparency, right? We'll go over here a little bit into how the algorithm works, right, under the hood. And that will give us some insight into why we designed this thing the way we did, right? So I'm starting here by talking about occupancy, right? Even though what we really care about is prices, right? But it'll get to a point where you'll understand that, I mean, obviously the two are heavily connected, but it'll get more obvious as I go through the presentation. But let's talk, this is the beginning of the algorithm. And to begin doing this price recommendation, we need to know how the prices will be in the future. So in the charts here, we have like two charts. Top chart is talking about pacing. So in solid red, we have what is the pacing for this year, right? For future dates. And then in gray, we have what was the pacing during the same time period last year. And then on the bottom chart, we're talking about what was the final occupancy for the dates in the future last year. So we're talking about history on the second chart. All right, so the intuition here is that those are the two pieces of information that are really critical to us, right? And then using those pieces of information, how can we come up with a final occupancy forecast for this year? So looking at pacing, right, on the top chart, there are some areas where it becomes kind of clear what type of insight we're looking for. So I highlighted those areas in green with the green arrows. So we see there that for those dates, the pacing last year was lower than the pacing this year, right? So you can think that like, hey, last year during the same time period, we were about 40% booked in August. This year, for some dates, we're like above 60%. So we can safely assume that the final occupancy for those dates will be much higher than last year. And then, but pacing is really good, but it doesn't tell us the whole story, because as you can see far out, we don't get a lot of signal for pacing, right? A lot of information. We do get some information, right? And we use it when we can. But if we're really, really far out, bookings haven't started to come in yet. And so there isn't a lot of information about how the bookings will look just by looking at pacing. But the good thing is that we do have a lot of historical data. So we use data from past years to kind of give us that insight. So if we go to the next slide, on the second chart, we're now overlaying a solid green line, which is the forecast that we have for this year. So kind of bringing it all together, right? So and you'll see in the solid green chart where those insights are coming from, both from pacing and from the forecast, right? So on close-in dates, you'll see in August, for example, where those two peaks were in the solid red line up top, they're still showing up in the solid green line, which is our final forecast, because, yeah, like we said, we expect those days to have a higher occupancy than last year. But far out, you'll see that the dotted line, which is last year's occupancy, is closely following the solid green line, which means that we're taking the future occupancy, last year's final occupancy, heavily into account when calculating that. There are certain adjustments that we have to make sure that that we have a good occupancy for certain events, right? So, for example, Easter is an event that has really high demand for certain areas every year, but it moves from year over year, right? It's not always in the same dates. So for every single event or every repeating event in the world, like every holiday type of event, we have a mapping that shows us what were the dates for those events last year and what are the dates for the events this year, so that we can properly account for them in our model. So this is all I have for this yearly forecast. So we can go to the next chart. So again, another chart, but this one is important too. So when we talk about forecasts, the last chart we're talking about like, hey, in a broad sense, right? How are we forecasting for the whole year? Now we're going to dig into a single date. So we look at forecasts on a date level, right? Because dates have they progress. The occupancy progresses differently for every single date in your calendar. So that's what we're talking about. So in the first chart, we're kind of seeing where you can think about it as the trajectory of occupancy over time, right? So we're starting 300 days out, right? When the date is almost a year out, very unlikely to be booked, right? Occupancy is 0 for that date. And then you move along the axis there and you go 200 days out, 100 days out, and the occupancy starts to build until today, right? Which is about 50 days out. And then after today, we don't know what the occupancy is going to end up like, but we can forecast it, and that's the dotted line. So on the chart on the right, we kept the same chart, but now I overlaid some information that we used to come up with the forecast, which are dates that already happened in the past, right? And so for some, what we do is we pick a few dates in the past that we think will kind of have the same type of trajectory as this date that we want to forecast, and those dates are shown in that chart as the black and gray line. So we have 3 of those there. And based on those, as a combination of those, we find what we think the trajectory will be for this date today, right? So that's very important for us. So we go to the next chart. And yeah, okay, so we talked a lot about occupancy, but what we really care is prices, right? And where is the connection there? And the connection is this curve here, which is the price elasticity curve, right? So it's literally for us, right? The curve that connects price and occupancy. So now we all did all that work. We know how to find occupancy. Now we calculate this curve, and then we find prices. And this curve is really unique because it's calculated for every single like hyperlocal neighborhood, right, that Anurag was talking about in the world, for every single date. Right? So different dates have different like booking curves, right? And so each of them has a different price elasticity curve, right? Different relationship between prices and occupancy. So we run this process like hundreds of times every time that you calculate any prices, and this is just one of them. So what this curve is telling us, right, is what will be the odds of booking any night at any price point, and or for one specific night. And so if you go to the price 0, right, on the x-axis, you'll see that the probability of booking is very high, right? It's the highest. And what that tells us is like, hey, if you set your price at 0, everyone will book it and everyone will stay in your house and you'll make no revenue, right? So yeah, that kind of highlights a point that I think is important, where we're not trying to optimize for occupancy, right? Optimizing for occupancy is very easy. You just set your price at 0. Optimizing for revenue is what we really want. So if you move along that line, increasing prices, you'll see that the probability of booking goes down and down and down, right? So you could set your prices at 500, for example, and you'll get no bookings. It'll be the same revenue as if you had set your price at 0, right? So there is some optimal point between 500 and 0, which will give you the optimal revenue, and that's really what we're looking for. You can see that there are certain areas of the chart that are kind of like flatter than others, right? And we kind of take those into account when we're kind of thinking about this optimization problem, right? It doesn't matter if your prices are like 300 or 400, right? Your probability of booking is around 0. But if you're around the sweet spot where the market is, which is like 150, then it does make a lot of difference to pick 150 or 100, right, price. Okay, now we can go to the next chart, and it's just an overlaid version of this chart. So this is what I was talking about, right, in terms of revenue. Now, not just the probability of booking is there, expected revenue is there too, right? And that's what we really care for. So you can see that when we're talking about revenue, it does matter. Like there is a high point in the curve, right? The black line is the revenue line. And so when we talk about revenue as price times probability of getting booked, what we want to be is at the peak of that curve. And that's what our algorithm is doing. And so we run this algorithm for every single night in the year. We find what's the price that we think will give you the highest revenue, and then we set that price for you. So that's really the algorithm in a nutshell. All right, cool. We go to the next slide, and I think that's my last slide. And yeah, so I don't know. I already said this, but I'll just go through the whole thing again really quickly. So this is everything that we're doing in a really summarized form, right? We're getting that hyperlocal data based on a location and also similarity in terms of listings, right? Same number of bedrooms, that kind of thing. So that's the first step, update booking data. Then with that booking data, using both history and future data, we do forecasted occupancy, right, for you. So for every single date, we find what we think will be the final forecast occupancy. Then we build a price elasticity curve that gives us the relationship between occupancy and prices. And then we we get your prices. And then we run that for every single calendar date in the year, every time that you do a save refresh. And that, in general, that's about 540 days, right? In PriceLabs, that's our default. But it can be a little bit different for each person, but that's kind of what we do. And then, yeah, that's it. I'll pass it along to Anurag again.
Yeah, there was one important point I wanted to cover that Pedro has spoken a lot about already, and that is like how things evolve over time, right? So the forecast is not something that's static. With every passing day, we get new information about the future. And with that new information, we are able to update the forecast. And that is captured in this example where like we went back to 2022 and said, hey, how would a forecast for April 2023 have evolved over time? A particular day in April 2023, which you probably see why I picked that example. But the forecast started out low, bumped up a little bit, maybe the pacing was high. And then as some of the economic slowdowns started showing up in slower pacing, the forecast was tending down. And then in November, Taylor Swift announced her concerts for the spring, and Phoenix had a concert on April 14th. And soon after, we started seeing like the pace pick up, and that resulted in our forecast jumping up pretty significantly, right? So with every passing day, as more bookings come in, as the speed of booking changes, all of that gets taken into account to say, okay, how do we update this? So like the forecast is not something static, it is constantly updating, which is one of the outstanding parts of this new algorithm. The last thing I want to cover is, and I think there have been questions on this already, is this already live? And how can I get to start using this? So the answers are twofold. Yes, this is already live, but we do also recognize that a lot of our customers have fine-tuned our previous algorithm to their needs by using certain customizations, by using certain settings. And switching over may not just be a flip of a switch and now you're on the new algorithm. In a lot of cases, it is. And for those cases, we are going to do the switch for you, and we'll inform you that, hey, you're now running on the new algorithm. Every newer customers who join from now on are already on the new algorithm because they didn't have to go through the switch. But we have also built this migration tool to help you migrate. So for example, when you switch over, to evaluate how are my new prices going to look compared to my old prices. Because in a lot of cases, we are finding that if you had day of week pricing adjustments on, or if you had any seasonal based prices turned on, you may not need those because the new algorithm is capturing those in a lot better way. So we are going to help you quickly visualize how your prices look before, how your prices will look with the new algorithm, so that you can fine tune or remove some of the settings that you may not need to remove. Over the next 2 months, we will be reaching out to every customer to say when their account might be ready. But if you want to move over sooner, do reach out to us. We'll be happy to accommodate that as well. And you can reach out to us on support@pricelabs.co, the standard way.
Thank you. Thank you both for going through and really digging deep into the guts. I think it's really great that we're being so transparent and really trying to make what's actually going into it, the data, accessible for everybody here. Because I know a lot of this can be like very complicated. And again, if y'all have any questions, please use the Q&A. Anurag did a great job. Pedro did a great job really sort of dumbing it down for us, I think, a little bit. They're keeping it high level, but it's pretty understandable. But if you do have any questions, please, we are here standing by to answer them. But there's actually a lot more to our fall release than just the hyperlocal pulse. Some of it is tied to the new algorithm. Other stuff, we've been sort of listening to feedback, listening to what our users are asking for. So we're really excited to actually talk about a couple of these other features that we have released. So I think Richie's going to kick us off with a couple of the first features.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Let me see. Cool. Thank you so much, Becca. So like Becca said, we have 4 additional highlights and then 20 plus highlights. So this is we'll try to rush through a little bit here, but we have help articles for each of these in coming days. We'll also be making videos available for each of these. But if you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out and do ask questions. We have a couple of folks who are constantly answering Q&As. So there's a Q&A at the bottom of your screen that you can use to ask questions. I'm going to use 2 slides here and then going to jump into the product. Number 1 is performance metrics. If you're familiar with performance metrics on PriceLabs' dashboard, or sometimes we've referred to them as listing health, you in the past could see 3 columns of occupancy metrics on your PriceLabs' dashboard or on the multi-calendar. We have taken that and we've kind of put that on steroids in some ways, right? Now there are like innumerable ways of you to cut and look at that data. The intent is fairly simple. While the HLP part of this webinar was focused on making sure that we are intelligently calculating your prices and automating that, we all know that there are sometimes circumstances, whether that's restrictions that you have from owners, or whether that's maybe there are times when our algorithm's not doing a great job. Maybe there's something else happening with the property, right? There are times when you want to look at properties, but in the past you could only look via occupancy as a metric. This now we've taken it kind of on steroids, and I'm going to show it to you on the product, but that will allow you to quickly look at multiple different metrics, sort them, filter them, and work through PriceLabs faster. Number 2, what we have done is we have introduced a desktop app. Now, the reason for introducing desktop app, and I know there's probably a follow-up question of very quickly, is there a mobile app? There is no mobile app right now, but it is planned for in future, right? We don't have dates on it yet, but we will plan for a mobile app. The reason for introducing desktop app is particularly for our large users. If you had a bunch of listings, right? Especially if you had 40, 50 or more listings, we needed to send a lot of data back and forth. And also sometimes you may be in between work and like trying to log into PriceLabs every time could be a little bit cumbersome or tiring, right? And also we were sharing the CPU space with the browser, which limited how fast we could work, right? So introducing this desktop app makes us run faster. And so you should see performance improvements if you access PriceLabs' desktop app. Let me now jump and show both of these to you quickly in PriceLabs, if I can find my account. Cool. So if you see my account, let me hop back on out here. Firstly, let me cover the desktop app piece. As you can see, I don't know if you can see the bottom bar on my screen, but I have like a PriceLabs logo. So I'm seeing quizzical looks. So clearly you can't see the bottom bar. So if you see, maybe now you can see the bottom bar. If you do see if not still, but you'd see basically I have a PriceLabs app downloaded on my screen. The way you can download PriceLabs on your computer is because I've downloaded, I don't see it anymore. But here you'd see an option to download PriceLabs app, right? So that's where you'd see an option to download PriceLabs app. Let me quickly find a screenshot on this for you. Or I'll come back to this. And then the next update that I wanted to talk to you about was the performance metrics of it, which is the scores of performance metrics that we have added, which you can easily access when you log into PriceLabs on your pricing dashboard, but also on multi-calendar. On pricing dashboard, what you would see is at the top right side, you'd see this add new metrics or add metrics, a new kind of a tab. And if you're looking at my screen, you'd be familiar with seeing, hey, occupancy 15 days, occupancy 30 days, and maybe another column. But I have added some new metrics. I've added revenue past 30 days, revenue next 30 days. I had made some money in the past month, but I've not made money in the next 30 days. Of course, these are dummy listings. I've also added, hey, recommended PriceLabs base price to minimum price. And as you would see, if I clicked on it, all of this is sortable, right? Now, how do you add this? If you go to select metrics, let me remove the ones that I have. We do recommend adding at least 3. But if I looked at this, I can now choose from occupancy, and I can choose year to date, past 90 days, various filters in the past, or various filters in the future. Same with revenue. I could do the same: RevPAR, ADR, minimum price, right? How many of my rates are hitting my minimum price threshold? Sometimes our minimum prices are set too high, and so it will very easily give you that idea. Recommended base price to base price ratio. What PriceLabs is recommending your base price to be versus what your current base price is. That can give you a quick idea of, hey, I need to go in and tweak some base prices, right? Last book date, you sometimes just want to know when was the last time this property got a booking, because it might look all rosy and your occupancy metrics look great, but maybe you have not received any booking in the last couple of months, right? Booking pickup, again, for you to be able to see how many bookings have you gotten. And then market penetration index, this is similar to occupancy. If you see here, we used to show occupancy and then your listings occupancy and market occupancy. That's what market penetration index is doing. It's dividing your occupancy by market occupancy so that you know, are you ahead of the market, behind market, etc. very quickly. Now, there's a lot of definition that each of these metrics have and how they're calculated. If you click this Learn More button, let me X out of all of this. If I was again here, if I click Learn More button, it will quickly take me to these metrics and their definitions. I can add, I've added some, I'm going to remove all of these and just quickly show you. Let me say I want to add minimum price hitting 21 days. And I also want to add a metric which is, let's say, my last book date, right? And those are the only 4 metrics that I want to look at. I'll update and change, and you'll see the dashboard in the backend change to reflect this change. Yeah. And give it a second to load. And now you'd see, of course, this is dummy account, so ignore the zeros, right? But you'd see, hey, I have 38% of the days that were hitting minimum price, and my last book date was 26 July 2023. So you can start seeing some of these metrics. Like I mentioned, you can sort them. If you start adding a bunch of columns, this table can get extremely messy. What you can also do is quickly come to row column visibility, and you can choose to remove columns that you don't want to see, right? I don't want to see bedroom count. I kind of already know that. I know my cities. Maybe I want to see my groups, and I don't want to know base price. Last sync, yes, I want to know. And then I can choose any of these, right? So that way I can quickly access listings that or make my dashboard cleaner. And then finally, like I said, this is sortable, but what you can also do, and if you've not used our filters, these filters are powerful, but now we've taken, again, those, you could previously just use them with listing info metadata. Now you can also use them by metrics. So for example, if I want to look at, listing with occupancy, or actually not occupancy, let me say revenue in the past 90 days, greater than 100, and it will filter that for me, and it will show me just those properties, right? On top of that, what I can then do is I can save. So it'll only show me this property which had the revenue, right? I can, if I have created this filter and I like this filter, I can save this filter so that I can easily access them next time, right? Similarly, you can access the same thing in multi-calendar view. When you're in multi-calendar, you'd see the same. If you've created anything on your pricing dashboard, the same things will show up on your multi-calendar automatically. So occupancy 15 days, minimum price, last book date. But again, I can change this and select it in any way. And then the row column filter that I've shown you, it exists here on the left-hand side. So you can select whatever column you want to see on multi-calendar. Cool. So those are the 2 updates. Portfolio and this performance metrics, which is on steroids. It will hopefully help you run through PriceLabs as your. This is not something that you need for onboarding use case, but in an ongoing use case, as you're evaluating your performance, evaluating which listings to take action on, it will help you filter and run through listings faster. And then the second one, which I can't show you, but if you click on, if you don't have a PriceLabs account downloaded, if you click on the settings thingy at the right top, you'll see an ability to download PriceLabs app if you're using it on Chrome or any kind of Chromium browser. Right, it's not on Safari. We don't have an ability to download app, but if you have just install Chrome browser and if you have Chrome browser, access it once, and your PriceLabs app will be downloaded, and then you'd have the app on your screen. Cool. With that, Becca, I will move back to our PowerPoint, and if you want to take us through the next two set of.
No, of course, yeah. Cool. So, okay, perfect. Here we go. So, one thing that we're trying to do is make the tools more accessible. Not only make the data more accessible, but actually make your user experience even, better than it's been in the past. And something, if you've used PriceLabs before, you know that we have a ton of customizations, and that's because we're catering to not only short-term rentals, but midterm rentals, hotels, apartment hotels, things like that, multi-units. And the way you use our customizations for each of these use cases is going to be a little bit different. So we introduced smart presets earlier this month. And essentially, if you've logged in since we went live with this, you're going to see a pop-up where you're actually going to select what type of properties you are managing or pricing on PriceLabs. Once you select those, you click Save. And then actually I'll go into the product in a little bit to actually show you this, but we're actually going to be recommending different customizations that we've seen to be successful for that sort of end goal that you've indicated to us. Ideally, this is going to help just help streamline your processes, make things a little bit easier, especially if you're new to dynamic pricing. And also maybe help you discover some customizations that maybe you didn't really know about, or maybe were unsure of how to use. So I'll show you that in a second. But before we go that, if we want to go to the next slide, the other thing that I'm going to talk about quickly is team management. If we want to go to the next slide. Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. Is team management. So of course, if you are an individual property manager or just getting started, this might not be super useful for you. But as you grow your company, managing your team is really important. So in the past, really using just a single PriceLabs account is sort of the easiest thing to do. But now we have team management options. So you can actually go into your account as like almost an administrator and add your team members. So do you have maybe some revenue managers that are in charge of some properties, but maybe shouldn't really touch the other ones? Or do you have like a guest or an owner relations team that you want them to be able to understand the data and actually talk them through what their pricing strategy is, what options they have, but maybe they shouldn't really be actually touching the prices themselves. With team management, you can access all of this, and you can actually monitor the change logs as well. So it's really easy to see who's going in and actually making these changes, when they did it, and then if there's any questions as to why there's a crazy price on a date, you can quickly figure out who did that and maybe tell them why they're wrong. But cool, do you think we have a time to share my screen? Okay. Awesome, so let me find the right screen. Here we go. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, so perfect. So first we're going to talk a little bit about smart presets. So of course, I've already sort of seen the pop-up and selected which type of properties I manage or price through PriceLabs. So we're not going to see that bit. We might be able to find a screenshot at the end of this. But I'm just going to go into one of my properties to give you an idea of what has changed. So to access your smart presets, you're going to click Edit on your customizations, and you'll notice that this customization menu has changed just a little bit. Before, you saw a bunch of different categories, which are still accessible under this More Customizations option. And if you like the old like setting style, you can always pin this right to your screen so it doesn't, like collapse. So it's a lot easier to access. But if you click on Smart Presets, you're going to actually get a list of customizations, again, that are catered to your use case. So in this case, I've selected short-term rentals, and I've said that I've used dynamic pricing before, so I'm actually comfortable with having my prices change a lot day to day. So we have this curated list below that is really catered to, again, that use case. I can hover over these tips and it's going to give me an idea. Okay, so you're a short-term rental manager, you've used dynamic pricing before. How might I want to customize this setting for my goals? What have other people done in the past? What do we see as sort of successful practices that can maybe help guide you as you're setting up your properties or getting, more in depth with your customizations? Now, I've selected several different options. I've selected short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, and multi-units. So I can access these through this drop down here. And as I change these, you'll see that different options appear on my screen. Now, of course, again, all of these options are available under more customization. So you're not losing out or missing out on anything if you select short-term versus, mid-term, because you do have access to everything. Again, this is just a curated list to make your life a little bit easier. Now, if you just maybe selected one and you meant to select a couple, or you've, added some mid-term units to your portfolio and you used to only have short-term, you can always change this by going into your settings. And then you go to your advanced settings, and down here where it says let us know about you, you can select which types of rentals you are managing and whether or not you are very comfortable or used dynamic pricing in the past. But while we're on this page, let's talk a little bit about your team setting. So you do have to email us in order to have this enabled for your account. So if you do want to have team members, just shoot us an email at support@pricelabs.co and we can enable this for you. One caveat is that you do need to have the same email domain. So do keep that in mind. Now there are a couple workarounds that we can maybe help you with, but email us if you have questions. So here you'll see that I can add team members. I can put their emails and their names. And then I have the ability to give them different permissions. What do they have access to? Can they import new listings? Can they access logs, market dashboards, billing, etc.? And then I even can just say, can they see or can they actually edit every single listing in my account? So really, really helpful if you are managing a team or if you have a large portfolio. Should make your life a little bit easier. And then, of course, if you haven't seen the logs, if you click your initials in the upper right-hand corner, the third option down is logs. So if you ever are curious, maybe you made a change a couple weeks ago and you're wondering what exactly you did, why your prices are looking different than they did yesterday, you can always go into the logs and see a history of everything that's been changed in your PriceLabs account. Cool. I guess I'll stop sharing, Richie, if you want to take over again. And you are on mute if you are trying to talk right
now. Thank you so much, Becca. So we are running a little bit behind, but there is so much fantastic stuff to cover. Apologies for that. We're going to, Becca and I had thought that we'd run through maybe 10 features here today. But what we're going to do is maybe cover 3 or 4, and then we'll take in some questions. And then if you want to stick around after the hour, right? 10 minutes after the 10 minutes left in the webinar, if you want to still stick around, we'll cover the remaining 6 topics or 6 features that we wanted to cover. Cool. With that, Becca, I actually I may need you to share your screen again. Sorry for back-to-backs, right? But there are a ton of new features that have come in, and some of the past ones that we did want to highlight that users were not actively using, but were enabled by our HLP algorithm or other things that we did. But specifically focusing on intelligence, where we are trying to reduce the need for human intervention, we have all of these features that we have available Becca, if I can have you specifically talk about market-driven last minute and far out customizations. And folks, like because of everything that we did on HLP and planning for HLP, this is probably PriceLabs is the only company that has truly market-driven last minute customizations and far out customizations that are market-driven and not something heuristics. And similarly, like we're probably the only company that has like a minimum stay recommendation engine that recommends minimum stay based on your market. Again, making your lives easier. You may want to change or optimize on it based on your own personal preferences, right? Cool. Becca, do you want to take over and talk about market driven and I think we said hotel weights?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can talk about those a little bit. Let me share my screen. Of course, I do not have my listings on the new algorithm, so that isn't a requirement. If you want to use these new market-driven last minute and far out prices, it is going to require you to actually switch to the new algorithm. If you've joined our advanced webinar, or our 201 is what we used to call it, we do go through all of the sort of PriceLabs defaults. So you might know that if you haven't turned on a customization for your last minute prices or turned off your far out prices where we're raising prices far out on your calendar, you know that a PriceLabs default is going to apply. Now, our data science team went through when we sort of were trying to figure out what that default should be, and they figured out sort of a general rule that should work for pretty much anywhere in the world, right? So as the dates get closer, your opportunity to book becomes less and less. So of course, discounting makes sense in that aspect. But now, again, we're getting really hyper local with the new algorithm. We also are getting hyper local with these other settings like last minute prices and the far out premium. We are calculating based on sort of a curve of, again, how likely you are to book, how sort of the gradient at which we discount last minute and then also raise your prices far out. So this is now based on that hyperlocal information, the 300 or 350 or so closest listings of similar size. And what's really cool about this is something that people have asked a lot is, can I change my last minute discount seasonally? Or can I change my far out premium seasonally? Because maybe so I'm based out of Charleston, South Carolina, going into our high season in the summer, our booking window is going to be a lot different than maybe going into our off season, our shoulder seasons in the fall. So this is really adapting. It's recalculating every single day and actually saying, okay, maybe I have a longer booking window, so my last minute discount is going to be a little bit more gradual. Oh, we have a shorter booking window. Let's be a little bit more aggressive. So you will be able to find that either under your smart presets or under general, I believe is where it used to be. Must be under smart presets. Yeah, so custom last minute prices here. So if you are not on the new algorithm, you're going to see default like a 30% gradual discount over 15 days. If you are on the new algorithm, you will see a change here. It's actually going to tell you exactly how we're discounting and over what time period. And same thing for far out. You should be able to see that, I believe, under advanced. It might show up in smart presets if you are on the new algorithm. Again, I'm sorry that my account is unprepared
it's
for it.
The third one in the list, right below your pointer.
Far
Customize
out, yes.
far out.
Okay, you're right. We added customize. It used to just be far out, so I was not even seeing it. Thank you, Anurag. Cool. So also with that is the hotel comp sets. So many of you may have noticed a couple months ago, we added this hotel data tab. So you can actually see the hotels around you. If you have multi-units or if you have smaller units, you might actually be competing with hotels in your area. So it's very, helpful to see how prices are changing in your market for not only short-term rental market, but also the hotels around you. Now, what we've gone and done now is we've taken this a step further. So hotel data has always accounted for a very small part of our algorithm. And Anurag, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is if we see hotel prices spiking for specific dates, but we are not seeing that demand develop in the short-term rental market, we are sort of putting in a little safety and we're saying, okay, hotels kind of know something might be going on. So just in case, let's raise the prices just a little bit. Again, I think it accounts for like 10% of the algorithm or something very, very small. What we've done now is if you are managing like a multi-unit, you can actually customize a comp set of hotels and then increase or decrease the weight of the hotel data in your final price. So if I come down here, again, I believe it would be demand factor.
Yeah, demand factor. Yeah. So the thought here
Here it
is
is. Okay, here it is.
essentially, yeah, if I can give a little background on
Please.
that.
Yeah.
A lot of times multi-unit properties behave a little more like hotels and less like short-term rentals. And it really like who's booking and who are you competing against is the question here, right? So if you're mostly competing against hotels, you do want to say, okay, I want to stay competitive against the biggest hotels that I'm competing with, and that's what this is enabling.
Awesome. Great. So you have a couple options here. You can choose balance, fully STR, fully hotel, mostly hotel, or mostly STR. I believe mostly STR is the default that will be set, but you can go ahead and change this here. Now, even cooler than that is a lot of the times people will say, okay, well, which hotels are you including in that data set? Maybe I have really luxury listings, so I don't really want to see the Motel 8's prices down the road because that doesn't really apply to my my market. So now you can actually select either just the default, which I believe is the 10 closest hotels with 3+ stars on booking.com, or you can actually select your own hotels in this hotel data tab. So again, if you go here, right now I've got, maybe like 10 or so hotels selected. I can go into the map and say, okay, what hotels are close to me? Which ones do I actually want to have my prices sort of weighted against, which is really, really neat. Cool. I think we are running a little short on time, so I'm gonna pass it back to you, Richie, for
Fantastic. So let me quickly share my screen back here again. Like I said, there are a ton of intelligence features that we introduced with the intention that you don't have to do a bunch of this work and we will automatically do this. This is kind of the core principle that we started PriceLabs on. Having said that, we do understand that you need to analyze a lot of data because of your own way of operations or your own approach to pricing, right? And so we have made a bunch of data quickly available, along with the performance insights that we talked about, performance metrics that we talked about, which is on steroids. You have comp sets that you can use across PriceLabs, pacing charts and booking data charts, booking curves that you can use in portfolio analytics, compare competitor calendar that you can use in neighborhood data, hotel data with length of stay you can use again on your pricing things, and then events and holiday calendar. This is something that we're working on. It's currently in beta. If you would like access to this, please email us at support@pricelabs.co. But again, the intention is how can we, if you're analyzing your property, how can we make it easy and quick for you? Then next, bunch of tools that will allow you to work faster through PriceLabs. So you may have certain logics and we can help you work through faster. There are a few that I quickly want to highlight. Date-specific overrides expiry. We've introduced a way such that your date-specific overrides expire. There is a nuance to it that if you stick around, we will talk about it. Right? There are some kinds of date-specific overrides that expire and some kinds don't, and so we can talk about that. Smart check-in and check-out. wanted to highlight that if your property management system allows us to do check-in and check-out, smart check-in check-out would be an interesting feature to look into. If you're a property manager who's using APIs or constantly thinking about accessing data via CSV, we have a ton of ways to access data from PriceLabs, either via API or CSV. And then we've also introduced subgroups as an element. If you were used to PriceLabs hierarchy, which had listing, group, and accounts, we've introduced subgroups, and Becca can talk all about it, how it's helpful for several large customers. And then finally, with all the data that we are getting, we're also making some other tools available. We have 2 free tools on our website, STR Index and Revenue Estimator. STR Index helps you see market data, like country level data in general, and within US state level data, to saying what's happening in terms of listing counts or occupancy or ADR, right? This is not data that you'd make your revenue management decisions on, but if you wanted to learn about what's happening in your market, it's just a good way to get smart about it. Revenue Estimator, this is again a free tool. I would use this tool to estimate revenues in certain markets, but I would also say that this is something that is only directionally available and not something that is directional, like for directional use, and not something that you'd want to like write your mortgage off of, right? We'd have some additional tools available later this year that will help you get more granular into revenue estimates, right? But Revenue Estimator is a good starting point that can give you an idea of revenue. And then finally, market dashboards. We had heard 5,000 listings was too limiting, and so we have introduced a new version, 10,000 listings, and there is a lot more coming on data side in coming months. So I'm super excited about that. With that, Becca, do you want to close off, and maybe we can take some questions, and if people want to stick around, then we can deep dive into some more features. Becca, over to you.
Yeah, I have a couple questions that we can sort of dive into just for the sake of time. So first, just sort of a clarifying point. This is being recorded. This has been recorded. We will send this out in an email later, along with all of those helpful links, documentation on sort of everything that we've talked about today. But it'll also be available on our YouTube page. Now, a lot of people have been asking, we kind of covered this a little bit, but just want to be a little bit clear. Anurag, if you could maybe take this one. When will everybody be able to try HLP? When can we start having everybody migrate over?
So I talked about it a little bit, but we are rolling out a tool this week which will help our customers migrate. We also already have a migration schedule where we have identified customers who will not need to make any changes. I did see a question about like, hey, when I switch over, will my prices change? And that's what we are considering. Like if your prices are not changing too much, then we are saying, hey, we can go ahead and move you to the new algorithm. There is little to no risk. But if your prices are changing because now we are capturing some trends a little better, you might want to do this actively, which is why we are creating this tool so that you can, before saying, yes, I want to switch over, you can at least look at what you're signing up for, right? The other question related to this, Becca, that I saw in the Q&A was, is this going to cost more? And the answer to that is no. It's the same pricing. We are not changing pricing. We are only improving the product. So just wanted to clarify that as well. But over the next 2 months, each one of you should expect to hear from us about when their account will be ready to migrate. If you do want to migrate early, reach out to us. We'll try our best to accommodate. A lot of requests have come in already, and we have accommodated those. But happy to accommodate early requests as well.
Awesome. And maybe you and Pedro could probably, I don't know, decide who, rock, paper, scissors for the next one. I know you've been testing this for a while, right? We've switched over some key customers already. What sort of impact have you seen? Like, what can you share? Like maybe some customer stories to help sort of demonstrate how impactful this new algorithm is.
Yes. So I talked about this a little bit, but there are two extremes if you think about it. One set is very, very large companies which have multiple revenue managers who always keep tabs on everything that is happening in their PriceLabs account, right? when we roll this out in beta for these customers, the general feedback has been that the hyperlocal pulse is capturing their market dynamics a lot better, to where they are removing some of these adjustments that they had made. Maybe sometimes they were saying, hey, the weekends need to be a little higher. Sometimes the shoulder season needs to be adjusted down or up. A lot of times customers are removing those, which means in the long run, they're not having to manage as actively. They're still monitoring. Every revenue manager should have their eyes on this all the time. But if they're having to take fewer actions because of that, it's saving them time, right? The second set is also we have been doing A/B testing on this as well. As we were rolling out, not every new account was in the new algorithm, right? And we were able to see, because of that, like what kind of difference did it make? And the way we measure RevPAR differences is pretty unique in some ways. We say essentially, how were you ranking in your market before using PriceLabs, and how have you been ranking after? And in the first 3 months of results that we have seen so far, we've generally found that the new algorithm, compared to not using dynamic pricing, the new algorithm gives a 26% lift on RevPAR. That we are expecting that lift to increase, actually, because when somebody just starts using dynamic pricing or PriceLabs, one of the things that we see is their next couple of months are already booked, which means no matter how you price it, you can't really make a dent on the revenue for those months, right? Where we see the real benefits start coming in is month 3, 4, 5, and then so on and so forth, right? So generally been seeing pretty good improvement on both fronts. The savvy revenue managers not having to adjust their prices as much, or having to manually intervene less often, which means we have moved a step closer to set and forget, which is where we want to be, right? And then on the flip side, the people who don't actively manage it, just delivering better revenue results for them.
That's awesome. And for those of you who haven't joined one of our other webinars and might not know what RevPAR is basically a metric that's balancing ADR and occupancy. So it's really good to sort of understand your RevPAR in terms of performance. So that's why we're using RevPAR when we're measuring these things. Another question for you. Looks like we have a couple of midterm rental operators in the house. Is there any impact on MTRs with the new algorithm or any of these releases?
Yeah, so the algorithm has been changed for every type of property. The biggest, if you see the smart presets, if you talk about that a little bit, for strict MTRs, one of the things that we are saying right now, and by strict MTR, I mean like you have a 30-night minimum. You are not allowed to take anything less than 30 nights, right? There, what we are saying is basically use price smoothing. You don't need daily fluctuations. One event here, one event there doesn't matter to you when your bread and butter is a 30-night booking. That is an area that we are also focusing on improving, because one of the things that with the new algorithm we can do, and this is, Pedro touched upon this a little bit, but it's not just what's possible today, but with the new algorithm in the comp set, one of the things that we can enable is, if you're a midterm, only look at other midterm properties, so that the entire forecasting runs just on midterm, right? So that is something that we are looking to develop as well. I think we're partway through on that front. But if you are a flex rental, and flex rental, I mean, you want to take 30-night bookings, but if it is last minute or there's a gap between 2 midterm bookings, you're okay taking a short night booking. Then we generally tend to say, keep your pricing to short-term rental pricing, but use length of stay adjustments and things like that to incentivize longer bookings. So you can still use our minimum night stays and length of stay settings to say, far out, don't give me a 2-night booking when a date is 5 months out. Like that will kill my chances of having a 2-month-long booking around it, right? But if it's in the next week or two, open it up, and that's what we call flex rental. But for that, we generally say, keep the dynamic pricing to be the same as short-term rental. Use your stay restrictions and length of stay discounts to encourage longer stays.
Perfect. Very cool. Very cool. A question I just saw pop up in Q&A, which I thought was useful. Why do we consider, so why 350 closest units? Why of similar size? Why aren't we just, if I have a 2-bedroom, why am I looking at a 1, 2, and 3-bedroom comp set and not just the 2 bedrooms?
Yeah, it boils down to finding the balance between hyper local. So we want to stay very local, but if we stay very local and only focus on 2 bedrooms, we might not get enough properties to build statistical confidence into like what's happening in my location. So what we generally see is, for example, if I'm in Chicago and if I want to find the closest, we generally say somewhere between 100, 150 is recommended. Comps are recommended so that we are able to come up with a forecast and have some confidence in that forecast, right? Like if I only had 10 rentals around me, the confidence in that forecast would be a little lesser than if I had 100, right? But if we restrict to just the same bedroom size, what ends up happening is you end up needing to go farther out, to which point it's not very localized anymore. If I relax the condition of like, it doesn't matter if it's 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 5 bedroom, 10 bedroom, it's all included. I become very local, but now I'm not comping against the right things because like I said, 5 bedrooms behave very differently from 2 bedrooms. Now, if you're a 2 bedroom, there are larger 1 bedrooms, there are smaller 3 bedrooms. There is some overlap in what kind of demand is booking each of these. So it's all about balancing, like, do we want to go too far from your home, or do we want to find things that somewhat at least mimic the kind of demand that's going to touch your home?
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. So this one is more of like a, I guess not technical question, but the desktop app, can we remind people how to find it? Is it in an app store or again, I don't know if you have a screenshot that we can share.
I do, Becca. I do.
Okay, awesome.
Sorry.
Awesome.
Can you go on to the next question? But I'll find it.
Yeah,
I
we
have
can
it
also
here.
go. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Richie. Let me see. I think you touched on a couple of things throughout this live event, but what, I know we just released this, but what else is on the horizon? What can our users look forward to next?
There
I think
is actually an entire phase 2 of this breakthrough release that we have in store for the next, I would say, towards the end of the year. There is a lot more that we have been working on. Richie touched upon this, but Hyperlocal Pulse itself is built on top of a lot of data enhancements that we have made. So that itself is enabling a lot of things. But there is, sorry, Richie, did you have specific examples you wanted to go into, or?
I can. Like, so
Yeah.
there are a few things that we're doing. We're working on team management side of things. And while the team management in PriceLabs is great, but we want to improve it. So if you have feedback, if you're using team management side of things, if you have feedback, please do send it to us. We're improving that, right? We are making a bunch of changes, UI changes on our graphs to make it easy to read. Right. And so that's another thing that you'd see come in. Number 3, this might not necessarily happen till the end of this year, but we're working towards this. We're working towards something that we're calling as the customization playground, right? Which will allow you something that we'd introduce as a part of the migration, but then eventually see if we can bring it to the product itself. But it will allow you to see your prices with changing customizations without actually saving customizations, so that you can see how you can tweak your customizations without changing anything, right? And then coming to HLP itself, we have market-based last minute and far out. But if you've used PriceLabs and if you're familiar with OBA and POBA, which are very, very powerful, particularly OBA will also start to reflect some market-based pricing towards later this year, right? There is a ton more that are possibly coming out. And
I have a couple that I do want to highlight. We are rolling out a new multi-calendar to make it like a lot faster than what our current multi-calendar is. And then also our seasonal settings. Right now, we added this functionality of having seasonal minimum stay profiles, but we're also allowing people to have different last minute discounts, different OVA, different POVA, those kinds of things by season as well. So like making it a lot more flexible.
Very cool. So going back to one question, which was about how to download desktop app. My apologies that I was on the app, so of course you can't download, like I couldn't download from the app. But if you are in your PriceLabs account, on the right top corner, you'd see your initials. And if you click that, you'd see all of the usual details. But at the bottom of it, you'd see download desktop app. Again, highlighting the fact that you can only use this on Chrome or Microsoft Edge, or download from Chrome or Microsoft Edge. On a Safari, this is you can't download from, but you can use it on Mac. If you have a Chrome browser, you can use it on Mac very easily. Cool. Becca, do you want to close us off? And then, do you want to close us off?
Sure. Sure. Y'all, thank you so much for taking the time. I know, taking time out of your day is hard to do. So sitting with us for an hour to learn about our new updates, it really means a lot to us. We do all of this for you. So if you do have any feedback about the new algorithm, about any of the new tools that we've released today, please do let us know, because how you are using our tools and how you are experiencing our product is so important to us. But yeah, reach out to us at support@pricelabs.co. You can also chat us. The poor support team is probably going to not be happy that I'm telling you this, but you can always chat us in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I'm assuming that they'll probably get a lot of questions right now. So if we are a little bit slow getting back to you this morning, we appreciate your patience. But yeah, thank you all so much. And thank you, Anurag, Richie, the entire data science team. This has been really incredible. The marketing team, everybody has worked so hard in the past couple months, past couple years to bring this. So it's just a really exciting time to be a part of PriceLabs.
I did want to add, in addition to the poll that's running, if there are suggestions on where things can improve, a lot of our product team is on call. So feel free to share it in here in Q&A. I saw a lot of product suggestions already coming through. Even if you miss sending it in this call and think of something later, again, send in a support question. Our product team looks at the support questions and decides, what do people need.
Very cool. Anurag briefly touched on this, but if you're listening to this call, I'm sure like you have seen that we are running a poll right now. If you could fill in that poll, that will really help us. The last question on that poll will also tell Becca and I if we are sticking around to cover a few new features, probably for another 15 minutes. So if you're listening in, please do fill in that poll, and we'd be extremely thankful. With that, having said that, I think we can let our other panelists go. So thank you so much, Anurag, Pedro, Arpit, Shreyans, Abhishek, and Thibaut for joining in. And we'll see how this poll turns out. And if we have people who want to stick around post this post, we'll cover a few more features. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone, from PriceLabs team, and then from customer sites. If you want to stick around, the fourth question on the poll is yes, let's do it. If you tell us, then if we get a substantial number in another minute or so, then we will continue. Else we'd drop off, but we'll then cover it in a secondary webinar that we'd potentially run in a week's time or so.
And even if we stick around, if you have to go somewhere, we will be covering this in the email still. But if you want to ask live questions or sort of see how we would go through it, that's when you would say yes.
Absolutely. Very cool. Okay. There's a bunch of alrighty. I think few people are still funneling in. What do you say, Becca?
About 80 people that want us to stick around, so we might as well.
Which is, yeah, there are about 80 people that want us to stick around. Let's do this. Cool. Let's do this. I am going to share my screen again, but I've lost my Canva somewhere. I don't know where. Let me see. One second, everyone. Okay,
I have
here
it
it
pulled
is.
up. Okay.
It's okay. I got it. Cool. All right. Sorry if you get vertigo looking at me flipping through slides really, really fast. I'm going to pause sharing and then okay. Let's do this. Cool. So we'd go back to this market-driven, last-minute far-out, and seasonality customizations is something that Becca already covered. But Becca did not have the last-minute customization screen, so I can quickly show it to you. If I'm on Smart Presets, I will see this. For example, it now says for me, PriceLabs market-driven default because I am on the new algorithm, right?
Richie, we're seeing the slide still, so sorry.
No. I'm sorry. I was just sharing my slides. Okay. So now if you can see my screen, because I've turned off the customization and I am on hyperlocal pulse, I see it now says PriceLabs market-driven default, and I can see it's saying, hey, discount starting 6 days out and increased to top out at 38%. We're going to play around with that language a little bit, but essentially what it means is day zero is 38%, and we will be discounting the last 6 days, right? But this could change automatically if the market conditions change, right? If we evaluate that it needs to change, if seasonality is changed, if something big is happening, or if something's changing in the market, this can change, right? And how this is changed is previously, if you were to look at last minute customization, you would see fixed, flat, gradual, and no last minute. But now you see this market-driven option. So that's the new one. And very similarly, because I'm in Smart Presets and I am a short-term rental owner, it is also telling me you can also customize your far-out pricing. But PriceLabs is already doing this. Premium starts at 60 days out and gradually increase 20% for the next 91 days, right? And are constant after day 151, right? And again, I can change this to saying I don't want far out price increases. If you're someone who likes bookings with a longer booking window, right? You may want to taper this back in and not do this. But the reason why we have far out price increases is because there are a lot of unknowns when we are operating like 90 days out, even 60 days out, 90 days out, events get announced. And so we don't want to mess on underpricing events. So we do have a premium that we add for far out days, right? Now, and then the other thing that Becca had talked about, and again, you'd see this in Smart Presets. Smart Presets was one of the first functionalities that Becca talked about, but you'd also see the custom seasonal profile. Not custom seasonal profile. I don't see it here, but in seasonal minimums, the seasonality where I can choose, now I can choose if PriceLabs one will always, if it's turned off, it'll always be on recommended, but you can choose to be conservative where you can say, don't make my market as seasonal or my listing as seasonal, reduce the seasonality. So it'll be in high season slightly lower and in low season slightly higher, right? And aggressive will make it just like fluctuate a little bit more. And you can also choose to say no seasonality because you're going to take over and input your own custom seasonality by using PriceLabs and allowing for seasonality, right? By adjusting the base prices, so you're going to take over the seasonality itself. Cool.
One thing that I saw a couple people ask about is I think some people have pools for their listings. One thing that I've seen the sort of changing the seasonality sensitivity. If you have a pool, you tend to be much more in high demand if you're in a seasonal market during your high season, and then maybe during your low season because that pool isn't, in use. you can actually be a little bit more aggressive and lower your prices lower in your low season. So that's one use. I saw a couple people are asking about pools, so just wanted to throw that tip in there.
Very cool. And I see some of you are raising hands. This is a slightly larger webinar where we can't have people on stage, so please do ask them in Q&A, and we will try to get back to you. The other two things that I wanted to quickly touch on: enhanced minimum stay and min stay, minimum stay recommendation engine and min stay flexibility, right? So let me go back into my account here again. And Becca, you can see my account, right? Yeah, okay. If I go back into my account, this is a New Orleans property, 2-bedroom. You'd see New Orleans right here and 2 bedrooms, right? And if I hop into customizations, and the first tab is stay restrictions, and you see this bulb kind of icon. Wherever you see this bulb kind of icon, it is like we have certain recommendations for you based on market data, etc. Right? So if I click this, and I prefer short-term bookings, which is generally less than 14 days, it will go look at my market and it will already tell me, hey, generally in order to maximize your revenues, you should do 3 nights, 3 nights. And like, how should you manage your orphan days, last minute, far out? I'm not going to get too deep into it. But if you're not very familiar with it, please do attend one of our 101, or I think we call them our basic and advanced trainings now. So please do attend that, where we get into details of minimum stay. But what's also enhanced on this is this is something that we had introduced last year, and I think we are the only pricing software that has this. But what's also enhanced is we now have these seasonal recommendations as well. So for example, here far out, I'm only doing 4 nights, 4 nights. But in October, if it's 90 days out, we're saying you should actually be doing 6 nights and 7 nights, right? And in November, very similarly, we're actually seeing 7 nights, 7 nights. I'm not sure what happens in October and November in New Orleans, but something clearly happens that is telling us to push for longer stays in that time, right? And even the default is like 7 nights, 7 nights in November, and in October, 5 nights, 5 nights. So we're really trying to drive large bookings, long bookings in that window. What has also happened in minimum stay restrictions, you see these typical minimum stay restrictions, and again, you can add them at listing, subgroup, group, or account level. But you'd also see on the right corner this hidden thing, which is more advanced options. And if you go into this, you can use adjacent days and adjacent day after unavailable night. Very, very useful feature if you're trying to optimize and block some of your calendars. And then finally, if you are using our custom seasonal profiles, this is an old feature, but I did want to bring this up. If you're using our old seasonal profiles, you can use a minimum stay profile, such that if you have a minimum stay profile, you can use this across multiple seasons and across multiple properties or multiple groups. Yeah. Cool. Becca, on this hotel rates and hotel comp sets, did we cover them in enough detail already? We did, right? Okay.
So yeah.
Alrighty. Do you want to talk about, Becca? I'm going to stop sharing. Do you want to talk about comp sets across PriceLabs, spacing charts, and booking data?
Yeah, of
Booking
course.
curves.
I'll share my screen. And let me hop actually into PriceLabs. So comp sets aren't new in PriceLabs. And if you haven't checked out our market dashboards webinar, we run it at the beginning of each month. Definitely do that, because we're not going to spend too much time in here. But one thing that has been kind of a pain to do in the past, or just not very intuitive, I would say, is creating comp sets. And this is actually a super powerful tool. So again, we've made it more accessible, a little bit easier to navigate. So again, a comp set is sort of hand-picked listings that you want data on, and we can actually pull this data into the dynamic pricing tool so you can see where your prices and occupancy sits. You can also pull it into portfolio analytics, or just view the data here in the market dashboards report. So maybe I'm here in Tahoe. I don't actually care to see what's going on with the listings. Maybe in the mountain, I'm on the lake, and I only want to look at those, listings around the lake area. You've always been able to use this little lasso tool and sort of draw an area around the listings that you want. But sometimes it's more than that, right? It's what's the bedroom count? Is there a pool or not? All of those different things, they do play a role in performance. So it's very important that we're taking those into account. So before, you'd have to click here where it says create comp set and then enter data or sort of filters up here at the top. Not super user friendly. That was a lot of the feedback that we heard. So now we've added this great little filter listings button here. And you can essentially, just like if you were shopping online, you can go in and put in the filters. And as I change things, so maybe if I just want to look at 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms with, we'll say 2 baths, maximum of so many guests. I only want to look at, really nice properties, more than 4.4 stars. You'll notice at the bottom, the number of listings is actually changing. So the number of listings that are matching that criteria. Maybe I want to see if they have a hot tub. That's going to drop it down. Oh, that's yes. Okay, so yes, they have a hot tub. If I have both of them highlighted here, that means that it doesn't matter if they have a hot tub or not, or for any of these other amenities. And then you just click apply filter, and all of those, all the criteria that I just put is going to automatically be applied to this list. I can then maybe go through and actually look at the Airbnb or Vrbo links to see, okay, aesthetically, are these listings like mine? Do they match my portfolio? Things like that. But once you've created a comp set, you need to enter a name and click generate. You'll be able to access it in various parts of the tools. So if I just want to see a market dashboards report just with those listings that I've handpicked, I can come in here. And these are a couple of dashboards or comp sets that I've made, maybe 3 bedrooms, good reviews, filtered test group, things like that. I can select that and then click apply filter. This entire report is going to be generated based on those handpicked listings. Now there's other places that we can access this information as well. So if I'm in my pricing dashboard, again, this is if I were to just click review prices on any listing, in the neighborhood data set, just like in our hotel data, we can sort of choose the comp set that we're looking at. We can adjust it here. Now the pricing, the data that we're using to price you will always be sort of the predetermined comp set that PriceLabs makes itself, that hyper local set that we've been focusing on so much over the past hour. But maybe you want to just see how your prices are, different than the listings that you've handpicked, or see how the performance of those listings differs from maybe just the general market. So you can always choose a market dashboard, select the market dashboard that you want, and then select actually that comp set that you've created here. It just gives you a little bit more control of the data that you are viewing. The second place that you can look is under portfolio analytics, your pacing reports. And this sort of brings us into the next thing that I was going to talk about. Here, I've just opened this page. You would find it under, again, portfolio analytics pacing, and then you would click see analytics. You can, of course, filter there, but I was just going to show you this so it doesn't have to load. Right now, if you're looking at this data, so this is your pacing charts here, showing you your data from either this year, which is the gray solid line, compared to same time last year. So as of September 19th, 2022, what did my occupancy, what did my forward-looking occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR look like? How is my performance this year compared to last year? So for example, in this area here, you can see that my ADR for December and January are much lower than they've been in the past. Of course, my occupancy is pretty low. So, not too big of a concern, but you can quickly sort of discern, okay, market is changing, my performance is changing. What dates do I need to maybe look at? Do I need to make changes right now? Things like that. Now, maybe you don't have a huge portfolio, and these charts might look a little bit funny, right? If you only have 2 or 3 listings, your occupancy is going to look very blocky compared to if you had a ton of listings in your account. Or maybe you're a new property manager and you don't have same time last year data. You've only been operating in 2023, so you don't really have anything to go off of. Or maybe you just want to know what's going on in your market. You can actually pull in that comp set that you've created. So I'm going to go click this pink square, click on a market dashboard. And again, if I scroll down to the bottom here, you can see the comp sets that I've created. I'm just going to say all bedrooms from now and apply it. Now I also like, instead of looking monthly, I like looking weekly and maybe over the next year, just see a little bit more detail here. We'll drop it back to, how about that? So now you'll see here that there's additional lines that we've added, not just the gray solid line and the dotted line, which is my own data, but we're pulling in that market occupancy, that composite that I worked so hard to create. So I can quickly see, okay, is the market doing okay? What does that mean for me? Maybe the market is pacing behind and I'm also pacing behind, meaning my performance looking forward is less than it was last year at this time, and the market's seeing the same pattern. That's going to indicate to me that maybe the market's a little bit softer, and I'm going to have to really strive for occupancy going forward. I'm going to have to be a little bit more aggressive than I've been in the past. So we could probably do a bunch of webinars specifically on how to use pacing data. But this is something that we've spent a lot of time on in the past year. Same thing with these booking curves. Again, just like we do the market dashboards webinar at the beginning of the month, we do also do a portfolio analytics webinar where we dive deep into sort of how you'd want to use these booking curves, what questions they answer. If people are interested, I won't spend too much time on this. Feel free to ask questions. I can sort of answer them here. But again, I think we're running over a little bit, so we might just cut this short. The last thing that I wanted to talk about that sort of also rolled into this, I mentioned that, especially if you have a larger portfolio, you're probably taking advantage of the various ways that you can sort of sort your listings or like group them together. So groups is a really, really key part of PriceLabs, especially if you have a larger portfolio. One thing that we have introduced recently is actually subgroups. So if you've joined our advanced webinar, we do spend a decent amount of time at the beginning talking about the PriceLabs hierarchy. So this is what makes sort of using PriceLabs really efficient, right? You can use listing level customizations, but you also have those same options at an account level or a group level. This is going to really streamline your processes, so you're not having to go listing by listing by listing, setting things up one by one. If you have 60 listings, 100 listings, that's going to take you a lot of time. Groups are a way to essentially say, okay, I have all these listings in Arizona. They're going to have a very similar price strategy, or maybe I have aggressive, 2 bedrooms, things like that. Subgroups just add an additional layer. So when subgroups is enabled for your account, you can go into this customizations page. You're not going to actually see a subgroup tab pop up. You'll just be able to create subgroups, undergroups, and then assign them as a subgroup. Now, again, the hierarchy sort of applies in a pretty straightforward way. The more broad the level the customization is at, it's going to sort of be overridden by more specific level customization. So think of the listing level being the most specific, the account being sort of the broadest, then groups and then just subgroups is just right under that. So essentially, like I could have, if we're using the Arizona example again, maybe I want all of my listings in Arizona to have the same maybe seasonal rules. Maybe, the seasons are generally the same for all of those listings. But then maybe I have some 12-bedroom homes and some 2-bedroom homes. I might want to split out the subgroups because my 12-bedroom homes, I might want to try different strategies. Those might have a different booking window, different performance than those smaller listings. But I still want them all to generally be under that Arizona umbrella, for example. Once that is enabled in your account, if you go to the Manage Listings page, after you've created your subgroup, of course, I don't have it enabled for my account, I apologize. You will see the customization group here where you can assign all of your listings to your regular groups. And then just to the right of it, you'll see subgroups. And that's a really quick way to assign everything. You can also do it at the listing level under review prices as well.
Righty, Becca, if I can ask you for one more thing. I know you've ran through a bunch, but date specific overrides expiry, and then I'll take it over and then cover the rest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I'll share my screen again. This is something that I'm really excited about because it's something I've been requesting for a long time. everybody should know what a date-specific override is. If I want to go in and make a change to anything really on my calendar, you can see one right here. I'm saying my price is $100 a night for these next 2 weeks or so. This is essentially your ability to just manually make a change specific to dates. Customizations, think of them as sort of like a rolling, a rolling setting that's always going to apply. Date-specific overrides are specific dates. So maybe, for example, for December, I really want to protect my my Christmas, right? I want there to be maybe a 7-night minimum, and I want to make sure my minimum price is really high, maybe $500 or $600. I can quickly come in here and do that. But if if those dates are approaching and they're not booked yet, I might want to, not be as strict, right? So with date-specific override expirations, if you scroll down, you'll see this advanced override setting option. I can say, hey, if we're within like 21 days of Christmas, let's disable this. So I don't have to come in and remember to say, okay, I'm going to have to go in and delete my overrides because we're getting close to Christmas. I'm too busy to do that. So I'm going to set this expiration, and it's automatically just going to disable the override once we're within that, I think, once we're within a 21-day window here. Super, super useful. Also, like if you're in a 7-night minimum market, like in your summertime, and you're setting check-in, check-out requirements through date-specific overrides, you can set this to expire within a certain window. So if you want to drop down to like a 3-night minimum within 2 weeks, you won't have to go in and manually remove all of those date-specific overrides that you set up. So super, super useful.
Alrighty, now we are at 1 hour 45 minutes. There is so much more that we can go to. Maybe Becca and I will reschedule another webinar. Guys, thank you so much for everyone who hopped on. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed all the features that we had to highlight here. Or we had not had to highlight, but we had that we could highlight.
Had the opportunity
to highlight. Right. So thank you so much for joining in. Do note that this is all recorded. We might need to cut and trim some of our awkward pauses or any of that, and we'll have this uploaded in the next day or two on YouTube. You'll also get an email from us with this recording and also with a summary of features that we have introduced as a part of this release. We do have help articles for every single one of them. So please do access those help articles and try to get familiar with these features. If you are stuck somewhere even after those help articles, please do feel free to reach out to us at support@pricelabs.co or via the in-app chat. We do expect we had over 1,000 people registered today, and we had over 400 people hop in on this webinar. We had more than 150 questions go through. So there's a ton happening. This is one of those odd spikes that we don't plan for and have resources and capacity for. So please bear with us. We might be a little slow on support as we get back to you guys, but our intention is always to be as prompt as possible. We again have another webinar tomorrow. That's more a host-centric webinar, but we have 2,000 registrations on them. So we are going to get a little bit backlogged on everything. But it's all for good. Hopefully you will love and enjoy these features. And as always, thank you so much for the feedback that you've given us so far to get to where we are today. And we will welcome all the feedback that you have. Please email us at support@pricelabs.co. And then I know there are some follow-ups in terms of questions that you had asked or some unanswered questions, which we will also get back to you one-on-one directly if we've not been able to get to your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much it's crazy. We have 110 people still sticking around at 1 hour 45 minutes. I am a little brain fried with all the information that we had to share myself. So thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for love, and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.